live in 3, 2, 1. And we are live on the YouTubes for the Westlake Charter School, July 2021 board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the YouTubes.
Thank you, and I'll start with our general information that this meeting is being held pursuant to Executive Order N29-20, which authorizes local legislative bodies to hold public meetings via teleconference and to make public meetings accessible telephonically or otherwise electronically to all members of the public. Anyone out there watching, you're strongly encouraged to observe this meeting and participate. You can do so by sending in comments to admin@westlakecharter.com. In the subject line, put the matter in which you want to comment on, and please keep it to 250 words or less. And we'll do our best to make sure that it's read before the item is called. And if by chance it misses the item, it will be included in the minutes and circulated to the board. So with that, Amy, will you please take the roll and establish the quorum?
Yes, ma'am. Hope Golick.
Here.
Sean Berman.
Here.
Josh Carell.
Here.
Michelle Gibbons. So Hope, I know that she's here.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay, good. Janie Leggett.
Here.
Lila MacGyver.
Here.
Shannon Simons. And Jed Wallace.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, no, the one catch, of course, with being able to have meetings this way is you have to have the verbal. Go figure. Which we had, so it's not a problem. I'm just saying. With that brings us to celebrations. John, do you want to do the whip around again like you did in governance? Does that work for you?
Absolutely. I will lead the whip around. If you don't mind, I will start. My celebration is I'd like to welcome to the board 2 brand new board members, 2 phenomenal teachers at Westlake Charter School, Board Director Lila MacGyver and Board Director Janie Leggett. Welcome to the show. We are so glad to have you both here. Okay, I'll whip around. I'm going to start in the top left corner of my screen. I'm going to go Emily Batten, A-Dub, and then Lila MacGyver. Batten, you're gonna lead the show.
All right. I was expecting to go last on the bottom of my screen. Thanks for having me tonight. I am so much to celebrate. I am literally brimming with celebrations. I'm currently sitting on our high school campus. So very exciting. And I think I'll just celebrate that. I'll celebrate the 18 months worth of conversations that we've had around this high school and being in the physical space and seeing paint go on the walls. And, I know that Mr. Ike's going to share a lot of those big specifics today. So I'm just going to celebrate the high school literally like raising from the ground.
Love it. It is a great celebration. I'm sure it will continue. A-Dub, if you want to play, then Lila MacGyver, and then Josh Carell.
Sure. My celebration is still what I celebrated at governance because I'm super excited about it. I every summer really need time off to have a brain break. But then about a week before it's time for me to come back, which ironically is this week, I start getting really fidgety and antsy and like I need to get back to what we do. And I start getting excited, and then I just start checking emails a little bit more often, and I start doing a little bit of work here and there, even though I'm not supposed to, just because I need so much to be back with my people. So I'm very excited to see my people next week.
Love it. I love it. Welcome home. Lila MacGyver, Josh Carell, then Janie Leggett.
I will introduce myself. I'm Lila MacGyver. I'm new to this team. I have a new title. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I'm a student support services teacher on special assignment at Westlake Charter High School. So I am really excited to join that team of founding teachers. But my celebration is all the way at the other end of Westlake Charter. And, we had amazing promotion in June, but we had a second set of parents come onto campus for kinder assessments. And my oldest daughter is a rising kinder. So it was my first time as a Westlake Charter parent. And I was so proud to have my daughter on campus. It was amazing to see Amy greeting every single one of those kinders and Tony and Stacy and seeing Principal Caillou do her thing with parents and seeing it through a parent eyes. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it's such great stuff. I love it. You are celebrating from kindergarten all the way up. Good job. Josh Carell, Janie Leggett, and Jed Wallace.
Well, I'm just going to echo you and Lila, John, and welcome our 2 new board members. It's great to have you guys. Look forward to working with you and having a little fun along the way. So welcome aboard.
Great stuff. Jenny Leggett, Jed Wallace, and Sean Berman.
I just want to celebrate the fact that I am moving up to sixth grade for the upcoming year, and I'm super excited to do that, to work with Kim Erickson again. And also I'm going to be involved, a web leader as well. So I'm really excited for all the newness that's coming. And I just had an amazing first governance committee meeting, and I'm already like super impressed and just nerding out with all the things. So I wrote down 2 words that I needed to look up. So I did not know what pageant, whatever that word was, which I looked it up and I was like, I had never used that word. So anyway, it was just really, it was a cool space to be in. And I appreciate you guys.
You are a policy and leadership nerd. You're going to love this team, man. You're in the right place. Jed Wallace, Sean Byrne, and Michelle Gibbons.
I'll share the same one that I did at governance earlier, which was that, 2 months ago we had a board meeting, and, that morning I had gotten a care package from you guys with all this swag from the high school. And then I forgot to mention it in my celebration. I forgot to offer any kind of thanks, but I've worn the heck out of that stuff, and was on a run today when someone remarked, what is WCHS? I was like, oh, it's Westlake Charter High School, baby. So thanks for the swag. It's, continuing to pay dividends months after you first sent it.
I love it. Walking around, we wear it around. It's good. Sean Berman, Michelle Gibbons, and Steve Corvink, if you want to play.
All right, so I'll do a different one than I did in governance. I'll say how excited we were to get a little blurb in the mail about the 6th grade orientation. Because I have a rising 6th grader, so middle school round 3 for this family. But I know that it's changed a lot. We didn't have an orientation for my last 2, so this is a new thing. My middle son had an opportunity but declined to be a web leader. But the whole web program is kind of exciting. So there's just a lot of exciting stuff to see now as a parent that I've been hearing about as a board member.
Yeah. Sean, you're going to love the entrance in the 6th grade through web. It's really cool. Michelle Gibbons, Steve Corvink, if you want to play, and then our board president will bring it home.
Yeah, I just want to celebrate the board, welcome the new board members, and then, it's not lost on all the great work that we do and have in this committee. So just wanted to celebrate each and every one of you.
Yeah, excellent. I love it. I'm a big fan of this board. Steve Corvink, you want to play?
Yeah, I'll play along. As a shout out to Emily Batten and her vision around high school sports. I have a rising freshman and who enjoys sports, we'll say. And she's just so excited about the opportunity to participate in high school sports. So shout out to Ms. Batson and the teachers and the coaches for bringing this opportunity to our high school students.
I love it. Okay, Board President Golick, bring us home. What are you celebrating?
So I am going to celebrate space and how cool it is that we have a teacher that has been to space and you have the link, right, John, to the NPR from, that was Monday already, right? Monday? Yeah. So wait, Stamus, did I get it right this time?
That's correct.
Stamus?
Yes.
So I'm proud because now I will always get it wrong, but I'm just so excited to welcome her to being an explorer and to, a true, not that we're not all true explorers, but to explore space is pretty amazing. It's a whole nother level of when we say a global citizen.
That's right. Let's explore. I love it. Okay, that concludes celebrations. Back to you, Hope.
Thanks, John. Do board members have any other comments they wish to make at this point in time for matters that aren't on the agenda? Seeing none, that brings us to public comments. John, have we received any general public comments at this point?
I'm looking at the admin at Westlake Charter inbox right now, and there are no public comments currently in the inbox, but we'll certainly keep an eye on it throughout the meeting.
Perfect. So that will bring us to the reports portion of our evening. Amy, did you receive a report from Amber?
I did not.
Okay. So we'll go ahead. It's summer. We all deserve a summer.
That's right.
So I'm sure there's some great events being planned for fall. So make sure to go ahead and keep following the weekly when it starts again. Impact, development, and finance haven't met since our last board meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and skip those reports if that's okay with our current chairs. Well, one of the chairs isn't even here, and the other two are nodding or thumbs upping, so I'm going to do that. Governance had a great meeting tonight when we really focused in on not only what policies might need to be changed or updated as we open a high school, but also sort of how we do policies and what might be the best way to make everything sort of living documents that don't run the risk of conflicting with each other. So there's a lot of good work to come there and how those policies will interact. And one of those is on a discussion around that is sort of on the agenda tonight during regular agenda item B. So we'll discuss that again when we get to it. And with that, John, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to you.
Very good, very good. I thought I'd start with a little timer to make sure I don't go too long. I do have quite a few slides tonight, but we are ready to kick off the 21-22 school year. It's very exciting. I will launch my slides here and make sure that you can see them. A little thumbs up if you can see my slides. All right, and I think the people out there on YouTube can as well. So let's just kick off July 21. We'll do celebrations, strategic actions, and updates. Included in some of that is some reopening guidance that's been recently issued by the California Department of Public Health. So we'll kind of go through that as detailed as we can tonight, so everybody's on the same page. But let's start off with some celebrations. I think this was alluded to by Mrs. McIver, and that is a big shout out to our kinder team. Kinder assessments, socially distanced, was really phenomenal and really well executed by Principal Kaya. All of our amazing kinder teachers, our student dean, everybody involved did a phenomenal job. Stacy, Tony, and the whole team. So big shout out there. And of course, we've kind of been talking about this. There's been a bunch of tweets and a bunch of posts about this transformation that's happening at this high school. You know, in the top left corner, you see this 11,000 square foot empty concrete space that is evolving into our outdoor learning area, and you know, these indoor spaces that are getting cleaned and painted, and there's Carla with the keys opening up the door. Like, there is a real transformation happening at 4400 East Commerce Way, and it is worth seeing. So I hope you all get an opportunity to come over. We'd love to take you on a tour. I think Amy was talking about setting that up for us. Thanks, A-Dub. Great stuff happening there. I want to celebrate our partnership with Silicon Schools. We met with them earlier this week, and they were absolutely floored with the progress that we're making, with the enrollment that we're displaying, with the work that we're doing. So just a big shout out to our partnership with Silicon Schools. And here we go. Like, our teacher who, you know, traveled to inner space, right? This quote down here that Dumina Stamus was quoted on NPR when she was interviewed. She said, "We chased the moon." We got so much street cred for one of our teachers, our astronomy teacher, our physics teacher, going into being part of this NASA program where she traveled in the stratosphere and used a specialized telescope to study the stars from the stratosphere. Just phenomenal opportunity for her and for our school to be highlighted as a school that has inspiring adults and explorers on staff. So really a cool way. She's making quite an entrance in the Westlake Charter School. We're proud to have her here. I want to celebrate the middle school gardening team. McIver, I think you might be on that team, but like, hey, if you walk out in the middle school right now, the fruits of your labor are out there. There's a bunch of big zucchinis. I grabbed some green peppers and some jalapenos the other day. Like, it's happening out there, and it's because our middle school team really cultivated these gardening boxes with the kids at the during the springtime, and I'm enjoying it all summer long. Really cool stuff happening out there, and I just want to acknowledge the people who made it come to fruition. Speaking of cool stuff happening, high school doesn't open until August 11th, but it's open because high school sports, per CIF regulations, allows us to do summer conditioning. And there they are. There's your first summer, or your first high school athletes right there. There's some girls volleyball going on. There's cross country going on. There's a little screenshot on the screen right there of the cross country website with all their runs and all their meets coming up. It is on, people. We have schedules. Games are real. It is happening. So what an exciting opportunity for our kids. What's neat, as you recall, we have 150 kids enrolled in 9th grade, and about half of them are former, or current Westlake Charter students, and half of them are coming from other schools. And here we are. We know that sports is a big part of social emotional. Kids are making friendships and learning each other's stories and getting connected out there on the courts and the fields before the bell ever rings on first period on the first day. So really cool for our school and for our kids. High school sports is up and running. So let's talk a little strategic actions. What's going on out there? 3 to kind of talk through. We're preparing communications. We're preparing for a K-12 opening, really K-9 opening. And we're preparing to launch the high school, which is kind of an agenda item of its own tonight. I'll talk through some of the strategic work we're doing in this area, and I'd love to field any questions, thoughts, or concerns you have about this. Just preparing communications, there's 2 big strands. There's the staff timeline and the family timeline. It's really important that we, every summer, think about staff as its own communication strand, because staff are out there with questions, thoughts, and concerns about what is the year going to launch like? What is it going to look like? What do I need to prepare? I don't want anybody to, work over summer to read the Westlake Weekly, but I want that information out there because I know some people can't rest poolside unless they kind of know what's going on. So for some people, it's great. It brings them back to planet Earth. They go, okay, there's a plan. I can go back to resting. So we always send out a welcome back letter, which is going out this week. And that'll be followed up by the Westlake Weeklies, which are beginning on July 21st on a Wednesday, of course, for our staff. Initial Westlake Weeklies include an overview of some of the new safety guidelines, the schedule for the first 5 days, professional development, what does that all look like? So that's the first communications for staff, and that's followed up for our first communications for families. They get a specialized welcome back email. We have a kind of a special strand for high school and for K-8. And then we have the beginnings of the Westlake Weekly starting on July 25th. And again, we'll launch the safety guidelines for our families for sure. And then we'll let them know about the distribution of our health and safety guidebook so that the guidebook will have all the details, and that'll be issued just a little beyond that. All the reopening information, including dates, times, all the events, meet the teacher for each campus will all be part of these communication strands for staff and for families. So that work's been getting done throughout the summer. We're excited about the launch. Preparing for the actual opening of school K-9 is interesting because we're back on 2 campuses again. So some of you remember being on Pebblewood and Del Paso, and some of you probably remember being on East Commerce at one point. But being on 2 campuses, there's some different communications or preparations to happen on each campus. But from a 40,000 foot view, it's very similar. Big piece for us right now, midsummer, is analyzing the new safety guidelines, and I'll talk about those tonight, and preparing that guidebook. Are we masking? Are we not masking? What's social distancing look like? What are the regulations for quarantining? We need our families and our staff to all know about that, so we're doing a lot of that prep work right now. This is the big deal, right? This is room preparation, furniture distribution, technology structuring, supply distribution, all of this. It looks like a beehive over here right now. Like you think, oh, we're closed for summer. We're not closed. This place is moving and grooving, making sure that everything's ready for the reopening of school in just a few short weeks away. We're documenting all of our schedules and our assignments, who reports to what room where at what time on day 1. So by the time we get back, everyone's operating like, as one team with one set of schedules and documents. And obviously I talked about communication, right? We want to make sure we're communicating with staff and families. And we're preparing for our first 5, professional development and collaboration with our certificated team. One note to acknowledge on that is really that we're focusing on teams. We're focusing on how we do what we do the way we do, how is it mission aligned, and how does that create our explorer culture. When you think about our entire staff, 139 employees, and you think, okay, how many of these employees out of the 139 of them were here in the 2018-2019 school year and started with us in August and finished with us in June and never experienced a pandemic? That's one set of people. And how many people work here out of the 139 who started in the 1920 and experienced the original closure? And how many of them onboarded in the 2020-2021 and only spent a few months on campus? When you start to look at that, roughly 25% of our staff, when you include base and yard duties, office staff, administration, certificated personnel, roughly 25% of our staff have not spent an entire year on this campus yet. So this is Hope Golick. I met with her the other day. We were prepping for the board meeting. Hope, I'm going to call you out, but Hope said, I got the title of our book, Explorers Interrupted, because the 2020 pandemic was the great interruption of work we were doing so well, and it's time to come back to the drawing board and be like, hey, how do we do a full, comprehensive, who are we, why do we do what we do the way we do, what is the Westlake way, and make sure we're all moving forward with strong teams. So we're excited to launch the year to do that, to get our feet back on the ground and really start trucking toward our strategic goals. We're also prepping all the protocols to re-engage with our community on campus. We've brought the kids back, but now are we bringing parents back? Can you pick up your student at the door? Can you not pick up your student at the door? Are we coming on campus for back to school or meet the teacher? These protocols are about to be re-envisioned, and there's a lot of prep work that's going into that this summer. So there's a lot of preparation that we're doing as an admin team right now, and you'll see the fruits of our labors in just a few weeks. Let's talk about prepping to launch the high school. This is really exciting, right? The first thing is congratulations and thank you to our board. When I got here, I think it was 2014. I think one of my first board meetings, Jed Wallace might have said, when are we opening up the high school? Well, Jed, it took a while, but it's like our next board meeting, we will have kids in seats. This is the last board meeting that we will ever have without kids in seats at the high school. So we have arrived. Congratulations and thank you for all your hard work. It's coming to fruition, and it's coming to fruition in a beautiful way. I mean, Batten and I, the whole team, we could talk your ears off about all that's clicking together really well. We're excited about the launch. Now, some of the prep work we're doing is facilities and furniture. I mean, it is a beehive over there. Some of the furniture is still caught out in the ocean on an ocean liner. We hope it gets to the dock on time. If it doesn't, we got a plan B, and we got a plan C behind that one. The facility is getting painted, and all the bathrooms are getting new linoleum, and the backyard is getting completely renovated. It is a fun time right now, but there's a ton of work just in the physical state, not to mention staffing, preparations for protocols and procedures, all the things. Staff have been working hard to come together as a team. I think that staff is going to launch incredibly well. Batten's doing an incredible job. We are fully staffed and ready to go, and that includes our coaches as well. Health and safety protocols and procedures, while they should look more or less identical to the K-8 ones, there may be some nuance because of the configurations of hallways, for example, and things like that. That school will have to prepare its own health and safety procedures. On-campus practices, policies, and processes have all been drafted and put together. We think we know how we're going to launch. It'll be living documentation. It will change once we find out, there's a bottleneck at the intersection of hallway 1 and hallway 2. We need to reroute how we do things. And Batten's already got a PBIS team that's going to figure out how to continually improve our processes there at the high school. But on opening day, you guys, here it is. August 11th, 8 a.m. There will be freshmen in our high school. All classes will meet in person on our high school campus. And activities and athletics start on day 1. There's already kids practicing for volleyball. Practices will happen that day, August 11th. Our kids will be engaged in sports. They'll be engaged in classrooms. Batten's going to take you through a day in the life today in today's presentation, but it's a big celebration, everybody. We are prepared to launch. There will be bumps along the way, but we got a great team, and we will knock this thing out. Any questions on any of the strategic actions that I discussed? Communications, prepping to launch K-12, or launching the high school? Anybody excited? Super excited. Hopefully you guys come out and see we'll be sending some videos out and things like that, but the high school is really going to be a really cool, neat space. You can see on the screen here, I tweeted out today something to the effect of, what do you mean you can't plant 15-foot trees on our concrete backyard? You just need containers big enough. So somehow we got these are like sewage pipe containers that they rolled out, and they're going to be massive. I think if I stood in them, you couldn't see me. You could plant Steve in there. You could see him. But if you planted me, I would be a root.
I may have proposed that picture during governance, Mrs. Batten.
Yeah,
so if you get a chance to catch it, and you can get John back out of the tube after the picture,
If you get a step stool,
Put a ladder in.
I will definitely take that picture. Me and Steve planted in one of those would be epic. All right, let's talk updates. Please stop me if you have thoughts, questions, or concerns. But the updates I want to cover, we have the COVID-19 plan response. This is our monthly financial update. We have the July update. We have the budget trailer to talk about, the enrollment update, staffing update, health and safety guidebook update. That's the piece I want to tell you about. And then we have a day in the life of Westlake Charter High School. You can see the cool little painted blue niche right there. Is it niche? The niche. Little flexible learning space. You can see also that picture there. That's the backyard coming together at Westlake Charter High School with some planter boxes that kind of carve out some different spaces. And that's just going to grow into a beautiful space. As per the authorization in March of 2020, when we were authorized to utilize expenditures outside of our normal process, as long as we updated the board monthly. This month we're updating the board that we utilized some expenditures, $20,850 on some high school pieces. For example, the gym pads. You can see those orange and black pads that NP3 used. They took those down. We're putting up blue pads to match our school colors, and those will be reimbursed from the district in a strange one-off negotiation. The district agreed to buy those pads, so we're super thankful to them. In fact, they've been very generous in many of the things that we've been asking for lately, so a big shout out to them. I want to talk about Assembly Bill and Senate Bill 130. This is a budget trailer bill, right? The budget comes out in June. The trailer bill kind of explains the nuts and bolts, administrative regulations of how the money rolls out. This is really thick. It includes a lot of different topics. Independent studies is in there, and I'll be bringing that back to you next month. We'll be talking about that at length because all the independent studies regulations have overnight changed, and that's going to have ramifications for the manner in which we are able to do distance learning if people are being quarantined. So we'll bring that piece back. It unpacks funding. There's a lot in these bills, or in this bill, but tonight we're just going to talk about one thing, and that is the charter renewal extension. And you'll see in this graphic right here that it says if your charter is currently plotted to expire on June 30th, 2025, which ours is, you now get a automatic 2-year extension to June 30th of 2027. So today is, for all intents and purposes, let's call it June 30th of 2021. Our charter does not expire for another 6 years from today, more or less. So I called the district today. I spoke with Angela Herrera, our liaison. We both read this the same way. That looks like an automatic renewal. Doesn't mean that we don't have work to do along the way to make sure we're constantly meeting our charter promises, but I did want to acknowledge that this is something the board should be aware of. Our charter now has been expanded to 27, but our FUA is still going to close out in 25, which probably is good for us, all things considering. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns on this, team? Cool. Just want to give you a quick enrollment update. Currently, kindergarten through 9th grade, all seats have been offered. We have over 1,200 students on the wait list, so in a very healthy position from an enrollment standpoint. We always look at that sixth grade matriculation from 5th grade to 6th grade. Back in 2017, for example, well, in 2014 when I got here, we'll all remember one of my first all calls, greetings Explorer families. Do you know any 6th graders? Send them over because we're under enrolled. Like, we need your 6th graders. By 2017, we still had 32 of our 6th graders were new to the school. And that was out of only 87 6th graders. Remember back when we had 3 classes of 6th graders. So that was 37% of our 6th graders were new to the school. Then we expanded to 4 wide and matriculation got better. It dropped to 25% new, 21%, 13%. And as of this year, we're 14%. So we had 16 of our students in 5th grade leave to other schools. We did a little research. A couple went to Roseville. Several of them, 8 of them, I believe, had older siblings in NP3 and Natomas Charter Schools. So we could see that matriculation pattern continuing to those high schools, potentially because of that. But I believe that as we continue the growth of our high school, we will see this matriculation pattern continue to improve. And I think we can see that data because our high school, as you recall, has over, is it 80? Over 80? Over 80 of our, thanks Sam, I lost the number there. Over 80 of our 112 eighth graders are matriculating into our ninth grade, which is super exciting. So let's talk ninth grade enrollment. You'll remember our budgeted target was for 125 students. 150 is like this ridiculous max. Wouldn't it be beautiful if we did get 150? We never thought we would. I think we're going to. We have 148 current students enrolled and 2 packets pending, but that wait list is getting pretty low. So if those 2 packets return, we'll be back at 150, but it's plausible that a few more kids wiggle somewhere else and we open the year less than 150. But we'll keep pushing and keep, trying to keep it as full as we can. But it's really still a huge celebration. We shared this with Silicon Schools, who helps, they've helped over 50 charter high schools launch, and they were blown away by the numbers that we pulled in. Brian Greenberg said, hey, that is a key indicator of your success is strong enrollment in year 1 is a key indicator for future success. So really, really good stuff there. Staffing update, just real quickly. Certificated staffing K9 is complete. We do have 1 credential document pending. We anticipate that to be cleared up by August 4th. And then on the classified side of the house, we're all but buttoned up. We have a couple of positions that are still being interviewed for. A couple of, I want to say yard duty, but it could be a couple base staff members. But we, again, anticipate all that to be completely staffed by August 4th. So we're really excited about our staff, and we're really excited about kicking off the year. It'll be the biggest we've ever been, right? Because now we have high school teachers as well. And all of our coaches are in place as well at the high school, which is really exciting. So staffing-wise, we are really well staffed to launch in the fall. And this is the last update, and this is just the new guidance regarding the reopening of school. Is there any questions about any of the other topics that I presented before I jump into this? You guys are good? All right. So the California Department of Public Health did launch a new set of guidance on July 12th. Gave us a full 4 days to prepare before our board meeting. So we dove in deep on Monday at 5 o'clock when this came out, and we've been noodling on it all week. And we think we understand it pretty well. We're seeing the guidance that's being delivered by other entities as well. But basically, the founding principle of this guidance is all students must have access to full in-person instruction. What does that mean? Full days, not shortened days, not hybrid, A schedule, B schedule, 180 days in class, full days. Okay, check. If that's the premise, how do they propose we do that? Well, they emphasize, and I'm going to show you on the next slide, these layered mitigation strategies to ensure that we can make it safe to be in school all day. They really emphasize, California Department of Public Health says, hey, all eligible individuals should get vaccinated, and that's what they are emphasizing. Universal masking protocols, and the elimination of social distancing is going to allow us to go back to full days. Targeted quarantine practices, which I'll talk about, and then really offering robust testing, making sure that testing is part of the layers of mitigation. And we'll talk about that on the next slide too. But, this is the new guidance from California Department of Public Health, and they're going to update their guidance no later than November 1st. Now, we remember last year how many times things changed. So we're planning to stay loose. We got our guidebook. We'll update it as California Department of Public Health or Sacramento County Public Health Department updates the guidance. We'll stay in alignment with the public health experts. But there are some interesting tweaks that I need to share with you tonight because we're really, grappling with how to meet these new guidelines. So these are the 13 layered, I'm not going to go through all 13, but these are the mitigation strategies, right? Remember, we talked about this last year. How's your ventilation? Are you having kids stay home when they're sick? Do you have screening in place? Are you screening at the gate, at the classroom, at home? What are your quarantine protocols? Hand hygiene, isolation, food services, of all these pieces. I put check marks next to the ones that are like, yep, those are pretty much the same as they were last year. Our guidebooks all dialed in there. The 3 that I want to focus on tonight are masking, social distancing or physical distancing, and the new regulations around quarantine. I include on my slides coming up here how I understand the guidelines, but also the questions I still have about the guidelines that we've fired off questions to our health expert partners. So I'll share those with you. So let's take a look at preventative strategies here around masks. So masks used to be everyone steps on this campus, wears a mask. That's the rule. The new guideline says masks are optional outdoors in all K-12 school settings. It's optional. Students and staff no longer have to wear masks when they're outdoors. That means when they're showing up to the front gate. That means when they're traveling down the hallway. That means when they're heading out to recess. Okay. Students are required to wear a mask indoors, and adults are required to wear masks when sharing indoor spaces with students. Okay, we'll talk about some questions around that, but it's pretty clear. When kids are indoors and staff are indoors with kids, we are teaching and learning with masks on. When we're going out to recess and lunch outdoors, we can take our mask off optionally. Okay, that's interesting. As a school, we have to provide masks to anybody who forgot them or lost them. I can anticipate if we're taking our masks on and off when we go outside, there will be a lot of lost masks in kindergarten through third grade. So we'll have lots on hand. The exemptions still exist. Diagnosed health reasons, you can wear a face shield with the drape tucked in, and for pedagogical reasons, if I'm the speech teacher and you need to see my lips to understand what I'm saying, then I can wear the mask, the shield with the drape. So some questions on this. Can vaccinated and unvaccinated adults collaborate indoors without a mask? Well, we're not sure about that. We're firing that off to our health partners. It seems like vaccinated adults can collaborate indoors without a mask. However, several entities are saying, you know what? We're just going to keep masking indoors. I think Yolo County and I know LA Unified School District has said, we're just going to keep masks on indoors. And we might start off that same way. And we're still grappling with that right now because one of the questions we have is, what are the contact tracing ramifications of unmasked interaction? So we'll talk about what does it mean when two people are unmasked and we have a potential exposure, and what does that mean for contact tracing? If you want to make a comment, Michelle, I'd love to hear your voice because I'm not totally sure I can use the quotes there, the comments as a noted item. So Michelle and then Hope.
Well, I think I was just going to say what Michelle was going to say when I raised my hand, which is that YOLO and Sacramento are recommending that people wear face masks indoors. And LA County today reissued an order mandating masks be worn in all indoor settings, regardless of vaccination status.
Good.
YOLO and Sacramento they're urging it even stronger for those who are immunocompromised and over the age of 65. So
well,
that's just as of today.
I like good, clear rules. So yeah, that happened today. I missed it because I was head down working on this. We would love clarity like that because leaving it up to us, district by district, school by school, LEA by LEA is tough. Michelle, did you have a follow-up on that?
Nope, that's exactly what I was going to share.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. So yeah, that helps us. And I suspect, everybody, this is what's going to happen the next 3 weeks is we're going to get more and more clarity on the questions that I have at the bottom of these slides, right? Can we or can we not? So one of the questions that we do have is, what are the contact tracing and quarantine ramifications of unmasked outdoor play? Let all the second graders out and do completely unstructured recess, and 15 kids get in a dog pile and they're unmasked, and then we have an exposure. What does that look like, right? So maybe we continue using some form of structured play outside, maybe not as structured as prior, and we're kind of grappling with what that might look like as we get more information. So let's look then at physical distancing. We know we were 6 foot of physical distancing outside, 3 feet of physical distancing inside, and now they're saying in-person instruction can safely occur without minimum physical distancing requirements, as long as you're using the other mitigation factors. So basically, if you're wearing masks, we have proper ventilation, we're all washing our hands, following those guidelines, then we don't have to use distance learning inside the classroom. Why is that important? Well, we know we had hybrid schedule because you couldn't fit 28 kids in a classroom 6 feet apart. Well, now with no minimum distancing, everyone in California can fit their entire caseload inside of a classroom. The questions for me and my team is, well, with no minimum distancing, does that continue to imply unidirectional? Because remember, we all had to sit forward facing. but can our teachers do flexible seating and have their kids face one another? Or were you still facing forward? And with the new guidance being, okay, no more minimum distancing, is there new guidance around shared materials? Okay, we can sit next to each other, but can we share materials? Because just 6 months ago, it was, hey, don't share materials. So while we're getting some clarity, it leads to a lot more questions, and we'll grapple with those one at a time. We already have several emails out to our partners out there. Now, these next couple slides get really tricky, everybody. These are talking about quarantine after exposure to a known positive case, right? So here's here's one. If you are exposed and you are fully vaccinated, whether you're a student or staff, you do not need to quarantine as long as you don't show any flu-like symptoms. So you go to a birthday party, you come home, it turns out at the birthday party you were exposed, or you come to school, you're in class, it turns out you were exposed. If you're fully vaccinated, you can return to school the next day as long as you don't have any symptoms. One of the questions that brings up for us is, how will the school know if a staff or a student are vaccinated? Are we going to have self-reporting? Are we going to do it in advance? Are we going to say, hey, voluntarily, would you fill out this Google form and tell us if you or your student, in a student case, are vaccinated? Because that would help us with contact tracing. Or are we going to wait until the point of exposure and have the contact tracer try to figure that out? So these are brand new questions that we're grappling with, and we'll be answering them by the time we publish that guidebook. So what if you're unvaccinated, but you're masked? Okay, let's go down this rabbit hole. So I'm unvaccinated because I'm a third grader and I can't be vaccinated yet, but I was wearing a mask, and so was the person that exposed me. So this is really very specifically like if you're in class. If you're in a classroom where you and I are both masked, and I am COVID positive and you are exposed, meaning that you were within 6 feet of me for more than 15 minutes in a 24-hour period. So we sit next to each other in class. What happens? Well, both parties would go in, well, if both parties were wearing masks, the person who was exposed would go into a modified 10-day quarantine. What is a modified 10-day quarantine, you might ask? Well, you can attend school the next day. So the person who tested COVID positive could not come to school, but the person who was exposed, while both people were wearing a mask, could attend school if they were asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms. They continue to wear a mask as required. They have 2 COVID tests per week during that 10-day period, that modified 10-day period, and they continue to quarantine for all extracurricular activities, including sports. So I can come to school, I have to wear my mask, I can't go to sports practice or other extracurricular activities. There's a lot of questions embedded in this little slide right here. I'll just give you a couple. Does continue to mask as required mean that I only have to mask indoors? Or do I still wear my mask? Because I've been exposed now. Do I wear my mask at recess? Because if I take my mask off at recess, now aren't we? We'll find out. We're looking into that, but that is one of the immediate questions we have. We also are wondering, where will this 2 times a week testing take place? Now, we're getting access to rapid response testing, and we also have PCR testing available to us here, but we've been mostly using that, or only using that really for staff at this point. Are we ramping up to use this for students for this particular case? Potentially we are, and so we have some training on the 23rd for rapid response testing, and we have access through the county and the state to rapid response tests now for free, so we may be able to offer this in this case, but there's just a lot to unpack there. So unvaccinated in a mask to mask situation, we have this new thing called a modified 10-day quarantine. Okay. What if you're unvaccinated and unmasked? So I went to the birthday party, I was unmasked, you were unmasked. What happens then? Or I go to recess. And recess, we got a big dog pile going on, and we're all unmasked. Well, were you in proximity for more than 15 minutes? We'll have to unpack that. It's gonna be a lot of work to contact trace if we're saying wear a mask indoors, but don't wear a mask outdoors. And oh, you were exposed to Johnny. Were you near Johnny for more than 15 minutes? Well, I was in that dog pile, but I don't think it was 15 minutes long. There's a lot to unpack here. So we're working on like, how might we structure outdoors where we can be around each other, but we don't allow too much contact, because that might really complicate contact tracing. So unvaccinated, unmasked, must self-quarantine or stay home and remain asymptomatic, right? A quarantine can end after day 10 from the date of the last exposure, or it can end after day 7 if you got a negative COVID test after day 5. I think it's funny to say out loud. It makes sense to me. It might make sense to you on the third try because it is kind of confusing, but I promise it's all in there. This is just kind of interesting. If someone leaves quarantine early, so after day 5, I get a negative COVID test. I leave quarantine after day 7, so I leave early. I have to continue checking my symptoms until day 14, because if I get symptoms on day 13 or 14, I then have to go into another full isolation quarantine. So the questions that I have on this are multiple, but with the definition of close contact or exposure changing, will the definition of close contact or exposure changing now that we have the no mask outdoors? So I've been telling you, less than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes is close contact. But now that we're allowing people to take their mask off, are we going to redefine that? Is it going to be like less than 6 feet for 5 minutes? Or is that going to stay 15 minutes? I'm very curious to see what happens with that because I think that'll have a big ramification on the way we're able to implement recess and other structures that are outdoor. So I know that was a lot of talking, and I apologize. I really wanted to unpack out loud, though, the quarantine ramifications, the masking rules, and the social distancing rules, because those are the big changes that we're gonna have to communicate with our community and with our staff. And we got a lot of work to do in a short amount of time to make sure everybody understands that. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns on masking, social distancing, or quarantining? Michelle, Ms. Gibbons.
I was just curious, do we know to accommodate full classroom sizes, what is the distance between desks if everybody's facing forward?
Yeah, we measured last year, Michelle, that we could actually fit 28 students in a classroom. Really, even at 5 feet, you could do 22, and just short of 5 feet, you could do 28. Because we have small class sizes, I know some of the high schools are running like really big class sizes, but ours won't, right? Our high school's at 28, our middle school and all the way down to 4th grader at 28. So you could still stay 4 and 5 feet apart if you wanted to, and fit our full class size in. Is that the question you had?
Yeah, and I would just say too, as a recommendation, based on what we're seeing, I would strive to face forward, and I would strive to keep as much distance in between the students as possible.
That's a good note. Thank you. Anybody else have a thought or something to add on that to help guide? Yeah, any background knowledge you have on that, Michelle, I'd love to meet with you on a sidebar, because I am looking at some of these guidances and thinking, we want to do it right, we want to do it safe, and we want to follow the rules. Some of the rules kind of seem to conflict with one another. So help us with your knowledge if you have it.
John, I was just going to add, I think the CDC is recommending 3 feet if possible. So I might use that as a guide. I mean, I know that's sort of what we're recommending at this point.
Yeah.
So it cuts the distance in half and we can fit in that way. I don't remember it mentioning forward facing. I'm afraid it's an assumption at this point.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, because I think, we're leaning on assumptions. I want to be clear because, hey, Westlake, we love to make little pods, right? We want kids facing each other. We want to do table work, but I want to know, can we do that? It sounds like maybe we shouldn't do that, and I think that's probably a safe instinct. And I did also read the CDC piece that says Where 3 feet is not possible, then you can utilize no social distancing, which implies that 3 feet is a implied standard. So it says where 3 feet is not possible, do nothing. I'm like, well, that's an interesting way of saying 3 feet is probably a better protocol.
Well, they're afraid of the wall, right? You have to read it from the point of view of not setting it up so it can be used for schools that just don't wish to reopen, right? Does that make sense? And so it's very general on purpose because they just don't want to create roadblocks to putting students back into classrooms.
Yeah. The premise is, let's go back to in class full time. Sean?
On this slide that's up, is this a summary or is this verbatim? Because if it's verbatim, then I have other questions. But if it's a summary, then I'll just head to the the main source.
This is a summary, but
I'll look it up then.
Okay. If you want to shoot me something, these questions that are under review are questions that I'm sending off to the to the Sacramento County Public Health. So if you've got good questions for me, I'd love to have them because I'll send them up the flagpole.
Okay, I will go ahead and send them to you then.
Cool, thank you. Michelle, did you just drop the link to the guidance? Thank you.
I did.
Thank you. And Hope? Are you and Michelle?
That's all I was going to say to put it on the record.
You and Michelle are like channeling the same brain. I love it. Okay, thank you.
We deal with it every day. So it's an everyday topic of conversation.
Every day. Excellent. Well, okay, thanks, team. My last kind of thoughts on this is that we do have the 21 Health and Safety Guidebook coming out. We understand that there's going to be lots of questions from our community, and we'll be utilizing our frequently asked questions page to handle those questions and keep them coming. And we also note that the document's going to evolve. We all know what happened in October and in November of last year with spikes and policy changes, and so we're going into this full well knowing that this guidebook. The ink may never dry on this guidebook. It will constantly evolve, and that's what we're expecting this year. And that the school alone cannot mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Like, if it's just up to us, there'll be lots of closures. We need to work together, and it looks different this year than it did last year. Last year, we were telling our families, isolate and mask up. And this year, we're saying, hey, I guess the masking rules have changed. However, if your child's been exposed, you got to notify the school. If your child's feeling sick, you've got to follow the rules and keep your student home because if we're all outdoors at recess without masks on, I worry the spread will result in more closures than we need to. We need to keep performing the way Westlake has been performing, which is working together as a community to keep our school safe. Hope.
Yeah, it's one of those weird scenarios where our ADA may go down because our community is making the right choices for our family, right?
Yeah.
Because as colds and flus start to happen, there are already shortages with cold medications happening, right? Having parents really understand that you can't just slap some Tylenol on it and send it to school is going to be interesting. I mean, it's one of those catch-22s. Like, we're going to pay you less because your community is making the right decision to protect each other.
That's a good point.
And I think that's something we would obviously support as a board. So I'm not worried about it for us, but it's interesting, this sort of situation that we've created, not that we've created, but that our community, our larger community is really creating for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting premise. I hadn't thought of it from ADA ramifications. We're encouraging you to stay home and miss out on school if you have any symptoms. And I just want to state this out loud for our board. We will open in alignment with the California Department of Public Health. Some people may not be fans of continuing to mask, or some people may think that some of our rules or regulations are, not appropriate for our school. The reality is we will continue to work with our public health officials and follow the guidelines of CDPH and the Sacramento County Public Health Department because, safety is our number one. So, okay, team, I have are there any other questions, thoughts, or concerns on any of the updates or strategic actions? give me everybody's camera on because the next part of the show is the good stuff. This is it. Bring your faces back because Emily Batten doesn't want to talk to a bunch of pictures on screens. Okay, if there's no further questions, I will bring Emily Batten out to talk a day in the life of, thank you, Mr. Cormick, a day in the life of a Westlake Charter High School student.
Very exciting. And I got pretty good this year working with the high school spirit council on doing some like fun cold calling to get screens on, because I, unlike our amazing teachers, wasn't doing it every day and didn't get to that place where I was okay with having little pictures. Well, I would want to start off just by thanking you all for coming along with our team on this 18-month journey and getting us through those 6 quarters to a spot where we are at the last board meeting before students walk through that door. And so as we were talking about what to bring forward to the board tonight, the idea of walking through a day in the life of a Westlake Charter High School student as a student would see it, and a 40,000 foot overview from first bell to last bell and beyond a little bit. So I'm going to walk you through this piece. I, of course, always, we'd love feedback and questions as we go through it or at the end. I will next slide. And next slide, we have 2 of the, there we go. So you're looking currently at our bell schedule. We've shared the bell schedule at a previous board meeting, but we'll use the bell schedule as our anchor to come back to as we walk through these different components of our day. So we're gonna we're gonna pretend this is a regular day. So not the first day of school or last day of school, regular day. And the campus is opening at 7:30 a.m. And during that arrival time, morning arrival, explorers will park riding their bikes. They'll park their bike in a bike rack, or they'll be dropped off by the student commons. And you can see the student commons with the roll-up door open right there in that picture below. They'll be dressed in line with our Westlake Charter High School dress code. I dropped that in there for 2 reasons. First of all, as you tour campus, for those of you who've been on our K8 campus a number of times, you may have a moment of, why are these students not wearing a uniform? So that piece is important, but then also just to highlight that our dress code is intended to create a safe learning environment where our high school explorers are learning to dress in the manner that will be expected of them as they enter college and the professional field that they expect to enter. And so we're excited about that piece for our high school students. They'll enter campus into the supervised commons area. They'll eat breakfast in the commons. They can also access the outdoor space during that time as well. They'll be able to socialize in that supervised commons area or the outdoor, the backyard, until that first bell at 7:57 a.m. And that bell would indicate the start of the transition or passing period. So we'll move into period 1 beginning at 8 a.m. And just to note, I'm using period 1 as kind of an overview for periods 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you may be like, why didn't you talk about 2, 3, and 4? All those core class periods will be overviewed here. So during the classroom time, our explorers those learning blocks will be 83 minutes, again, on a regular day. So they'll have that extended block period. They'll learn with a content area expert. And I put this in here, and I think the celebration of our amazing physics teacher, Ms. Stamus, is a great example of that content area expert, someone who has dedicated their professional and learning life to dive deep into the content that they're very passionate about. That content area expert, of course, is going to be intensely focused on the content and standards they're providing, but in line with our Westlake Charter School K-12 program, will also be building classroom community from day 1. In that learning environment, they will be accessing flexible seating, similar to what you'd see in the 6-8 side of our campus. And then, as we pointed out, I think by looking at different maps of our school, there are other intentional flexible learning areas outside of those 4 classroom walls. At the end of that 83-minute block, our explorers will transition to the next part of their schedule during a safe and efficient 3-minute supervised passing period. I've heard that a few times in documents. Safe and efficient. We'll then transition into advisory. So you'll notice that advisory falls before that first period, and I've been asked a lot about that. Why isn't advisory starting your day? And there's several reasons. There's the fact that advisory can sometimes become that class that we skip to come to school a little bit later. And we, as you know, at Westlake Charter School, believe that advisory is of equal importance to those 4 other class periods. It also fit nicely in the day to have advisory transition into flex blocks for our advisory to help with that transition into flex blocks. So both of those pieces are why. you're looking currently at our physics classroom with those tables are freshly constructed. I literally walked in the room and took a picture as Mr. Rowe was walking out. So during advisory, our explorers will plan for the next week's flex blocks. So remember that those flex blocks will change. That schedule will change each week. They'll also participate and lead restorative justice circles. So restorative justice is going to be that piece that will be the extension of the responsive classroom learning we've done in kindergarten through 8th grade. And we'll see restorative justice practice or restorative practices taking place in advisory. And then they'll also be planning for family conferences twice a year. Again, that extension of our K-8. And continuously throughout the 4 years of their advisory time, they're reviewing and revising their 4-year plan. Can I share a story real quickly, Mr. Ike?
Yeah.
On the 4-year plan. I was talking to a parent, who not of a student at our high school, but a student who's going to another comprehensive high school, and she was telling me that she had hired this coach to help her child go through high school. And we were talking about that idea of the 4-year plan, and that at some schools, you maybe don't talk about your 4-year plan until your junior year when it's time to start planning for college, or you do it in freshman year as kind of a matrix activity. And then right before those college applications start, you're coming back and looking at it and going, oh, things have changed. And so working, with the amazing Christina Ike and her student support services team, Ms. Dodd, our counselor, and really intentionally using that 4-year plan as a tool, not just an activity that we do to do it. So then going into the ever exciting flex block period, and there's a lot of pieces that fit into this, and we are excited to have them all help to enhance our Explorers Day. That sign is not, that's photoshopped in there. It's not exact, it's not there yet, sorry.
Thought it went up today. I was, wow.
Things are happening. So during flex blocks, we'll see explorers taking part in that 50-minute flex block 4 times a week. They'll use flexible scheduling, and that will adjust each week based on the student data. So flex blocks will be planned with both student input and teacher input. And so you'll see that changing every week, and students would participate in re-engagement and then that chance to reassess during flex blocks. There'll also be intentionally planned extension for each subject area during flex blocks. Pre-planned school culture building. So we, Mrs. Grimaldi, our activities director, and I, and Ms. Furman, my right-hand person, went to a school culture by design institute led by Phil Boyd this past week, and really began to, conceptualize that school culture piece. And so rallies, whole school events would take place during those flex block times. Club meetings, and one-on-one and small group counseling. So you see that balance of social, emotional, and academic learning taking place and being represented in flex blocks. And now we're going to go to lunch. This is another exciting thing. So that's actual furniture in the commons. I may have unwrapped furniture and set that up just to be, so I wanted to be, it's very exciting. Our furniture, I walk in the commons every day and I'm just so excited about the furniture that's existing in there. So during lunch, explorers will take part in a supervised indoor-outdoor space for eating and inclusively socializing in large and small groupings, of course, in accordance with all current health and safety guidelines. They'll have the opportunity to play, and I put play on there and then took it off and put it back on because high school students should play. We should be able to play, and so we intentionally created space that will be open and available for them to play during their lunch period. They'll connect and supervise in the Explorer Lounge and to create peer-to-peer connections, club meetings, and quiet reflection time. I think something important to note with this whole lunch period and the spaces that exist during it, in particular the Commons and the Explorer Lounge, is just the student voice that was, student and staff voice that was used to create those spaces for students. And so I use the word inclusively socializing. There are pieces that have been put in place to ensure that every student can find their space during what can sometimes be a rough period of the day. If you are not somebody who likes to have a lot of people around you, lunch can be a hard time of day. And then we'll transition right over second period and into the end of day. So we'll look at what happens at the end of the school day. And I know many of you have been on our K-8 campus when that bell rings at the end of the day. And in a normal, the 2019-2020 school year, we'll go back, that year, the first part of that year at least. The bell rings, and in so many schools, everyone fleds for the exits, and it's quiet within 5 minutes. And at Westlake Charter School, that is not the case. We've, our clubs and our after school activities. And so I just wanted to assure you that that will be the same at our high school, that you'll see the bell will ring at the end of the day. You'll see students transitioning to sports practice, both either at our high school campus or at our K-8 campus. We'll have practice happening everywhere. You'll see after school clubs happening. You'll see students potentially leaving for an away game. So taking off on the bus to go travel up the hill, maybe to an away game, meetings with teachers, all those pieces that help continue to support students even after that last bell. And then we're there. That's the end of the day.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Thank you, Mrs. Batten.
Absolutely.
Team, is there any questions for Mrs. Batten regarding a day in the life? All right.
Can I just say that Ms. Batten, your excitement is so infectious that, like, as I'm sitting here, I realize I'm smiling at parts of this. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mrs. Batten. Josh Kreld, Hope Golick.
Yeah, thank you. Very important question. Are they allowed to leave campus for lunch?
At this point, we are not an open campus. We worked really in conjunction with our partners at Natomas Unified School District to provide a unique lunch opportunity, and I would be happy to at a future board meeting bring details of that to the board. At this point, with ninth graders only, and just getting to know the neighborhood, our surrounding area, will remain a closed campus for this school year.
Makes sense. I was just curious.
Yeah,
Perfect.
good
Thank you.
question. Yeah,
We are
thank you.
open to the conversation and the exploration of that in years to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hope?
I just wanted to comment on the day in the life really showed me. I love the simplicity of our schedule. I know it was not simplistic at all for you to plan, so don't take it that way. But as a parent of a high schooler who has to juggle like 13 different daily schedules, there's enough to worry about in high school versus where you're supposed to be and when. And so I really appreciate seeing it laid out the way you did tonight. I think it really keeps our students in mind and sort of where they are at with their executive opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I will circle that back, actually give a compliment to this team, our administration, our admin team. I have seen so many moments where extending K-8 to high school is a benefit to the high school that you're creating. And I would say the bell schedule is one of those. I think that when you get to look at a K-8 school and you see the benefit for students on understanding a predictable schedule, then you strive to do that at high school. It was, how do we create a high school schedule? It doesn't have a separate rally schedule. How can we make sure that our conference schedule fits in line with what we're doing, that we are intentionally weaving finals into the class period and not having it, so that our bell schedule fits on a page. That was sort of the mantra for a while. And it, as of right now, does. I will put as of right now behind everything I say, but as of right now, our bell schedule fits on one page.
Well, yeah, and the one I'm dealing with is like 2 or 3, and then with a free period and trying to figure out what days it falls in and when, and if that means late start. Anyway, kudos to the team. It really stands out to me because of having to learn it for the first time. Because while I have a sophomore, I've never had to do it because of a year that we again will not name.
Very good. Thank you, Hope. Any other questions, thoughts, or concerns regarding a day in life? Thank you, Ms. Batten, for being here. We appreciate you greatly.
Thank you.
I love the sign over the door, by the way. The Photoshop looks great. Let's make that happen for real life.
Just straight, maybe.
Hope Golick, I'll hand it back to you, I think.
I don't know. Is your report done, John?
I could go longer. You guys want to hear about? No, it is all done.
I just wanted to check. And by chance, have we gotten any public comments?
I just checked, and there are no public comments in the admin@westlakecharter.com inbox.
Perfect. Thank you. So that brings us to our consent agenda tonight. We have 3 items on. If there are any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask those. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Thank you,
Second.
Sean. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Josh. Amy, will you please take the vote?
Yes. Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Janie,
Yes.
Lila.
I'm a yes, but will abstain from item A.
Okay. And Jed.
Yes.
got everybody's name right the first time out the door.
That brings us to our first regular agenda item, which is accept and approve declaration of need for fully qualified educators. John or Steve, one of you probably has this item.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I can take this one. This is a form that's annually required by the CTC if any of our credentialed staff need some assistance for their assignment. So it's an item that we've brought before the board the past couple of years. It can't sit on consent. It needs to come to the board as a separate action item. I did notice earlier on today they're about halfway down the page. On the first page, there's a June 30, 2021 date on there that I need just to update to June 30, 2022. So I would just seek approval with that slight modification.
Perfect, Steve. Thank you. So
Sure.
if there aren't any board questions, is there a motion to approve the declaration as modified by Steve?
I'll move.
Thanks, Josh. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sean.
Oh,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Janie,
Yes.
Lila,
Yes.
and Judd.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to item B, which is a resolution extending current board policies to the 9th grade, i.e. fully across all of Westlake Charter School when a policy specifically references K through 8th grade. This was put on the agenda tonight because governance review of policies is ongoing, but we are going to be opening a high school prior to our next board meeting. So in the interest of making sure that if any of those policies need to be enforced against or with, I don't want to say against, that sounds punitive, but need to be used while we are still doing that review, this resolution is meant to put that capability in place for administration. John, were there other pieces of that you wanted to share? Or is that a good summary?
No, I just wanted to acknowledge that the one caveat within the resolution indicates that where a policy at the high school, for example, does not align to the policy on record, it will be in the family handbook and acknowledged parenthetically. It'll say in lieu of policy 1, 2, 3, 4. And the great one that comes up for me is the dress code, right? We are not going to be uniforms at the high school. However, we have a board policy that says we are a uniform school. And so in the high school handbook, parenthetically, it will say in lieu of the uniform policy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the number is, and then it will indicate the policy. So I just want to recognize that out loud, that that is how that will be handled.
And then in governance, we did discuss the possibility of bringing forward the handbooks at the August meeting. So there would only be a short period of time. In fact, the board would actually have, as under the Brown Act, have copies of handbooks already before school starts. So the board would be aware of which ones have been waived by reading that handbook. So that's on the list of things to do for August. And with that, are there any other board questions on the resolution? Seeing none, oh, Jen? No? Yes?
Michelle?
I just meant to ask, at what point is that this resolution for whatever actions are taken in the handbook, that's going to live for the year and then the next opportunity is the next year, or will what's the process?
Well, we could rescind it at any time
Okay.
by board action. So it's essentially in place as long as we need it.
Okay.
It's hard to predict the time length, right? So it's hard to put a sunset date on it. Because we're still identifying those policies that need to be board policies that need to be updated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I will move the resolution.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jed.
Oh,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Janie,
Yes.
Lila,
Yes.
And Judd.
Yes.
Thank you. So that brings us to the board and ED goal setting. John, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, sure. Team, I know we're at 1 hour and 14 minutes into a meeting where you haven't really exercised your voice too much yet, but this is the portion of the meeting where I really love to hear your voice and get some conversation going. No obligation to join in the discussion, but this is going to be an open forum to kind of discuss a couple of items. We're going to be doing some brainstorming tonight, but this is a multi-month process. Hope and I met this Monday and kind of talked about, hey, we don't need to rush into this, but we do need to get the work started. What types of goals do you think might be appropriate in July? If you have something on your mind, let's get it on the table. As we come around to August and we do skills assessment and board assessment, and we do that analysis, and then we take a look in August, September at the strategic plan and, dust that off and really look at it. Really by October, we should be able to start saying, these are our board and executive director goals. But this tonight is the beginning of the process. There's no bad ideas. Feel free to engage. These are the executive director goals that were on record for us. Monitor and report progress on the WCS strategic plan and the 2020-2025 charter submittal, which we know we did submit, and develop the next facilities use agreement. I'd kind of give this a check mark. I think we nailed this. And I think the red boxes are things that are ongoing. We need to report progress on the strat plan. And we need to continue working on that facility. Yes, we have an FUA, but we have not buttoned up that long-term facility. So I'm not saying we have to keep this goal for the executive director, but these red boxes are areas that are still continuing. Here's a great goal: launching the high school. I would give that another green check. However, the red box says with full expansion to the 12th grade by 2025. Well, obviously that is an ongoing portion of that goal. And then the last goal, because there was 3 goals for the ED, was collaborating with parents. I think this was definitely interrupted somewhat by the pandemic, so I gave it a kind of a plus minus. And the reason for that was, our last parent survey only got like 26 responses. And it's like, okay, we need to get back to our regular reporting process and really determining, I love this piece here, it says determine how to share these results more widely. How do we take in feedback from parents and make it more transparent to our entire community? So those are what we've worked on together in the past. Not saying we need to work on them again in the future, but I just want to kick those around real quick. The next slide is our board goals. I won't evaluate them for you because you should do your own self-evaluation, but create sustainable committees, become responsive to the reflective process, establish and monitor committee goals, and then preparing for the future, I thought was a really interesting one. Will support the efforts of the committees in preparing the strat plan for approval in 2019, which we did approve it in 2019. So we met that goal, I think, and the submission of the charter in August of 19. So again, I think we met that goal, but it was an interesting one. I give these to you, though, and they're also in the board packet, because I know some of you might be visual processors. You might want to pull up that document, because as I open the discussion, I'd love to do a whip around, and you're okay to pass. It's okay to go, I'll take a pass. But I'd love to do a whip around and say, hey, are there any goals you would like to just throw on the table as potential areas that you'd like to see the executive director start to think about? And again, this is going to be a multi-month process. Or any areas that you're like, you know what, I think our board really needs to focus on work in this area. Does that feel like an okay process, Hope? Okay, I'll run the whip around. Amy's taking notes. You're okay to pass, but I want to encourage you, there are no bad ideas. So even if you're thinking anything, be like, hey, I think we should work in this area, and we'll see where it goes. So Hope, do you mind leading us? Can I call on you first to put the pressure on?
Yeah. And John, at this point, I think I'll go ahead and I'll share my full midnight book title, because it shapes it shapes how I view the school year and what the goal should be. And what I came up with was Explorers Interrupted: Rediscovering Our Collective Destination. Because I feel like because we weren't coming together as a community, maybe it's just time to sit around and make sure that we understand where we're headed. That it's easy to have that get lost. when you're not sort of discussing it or even being like together and seeing the pieces of it. What is student success? What do the standards tell us? And so for me, like looking at the old goals, I can see pieces to build off of. Right, even using that sort of idea, that methodology of what our collective destination is. For me, also a big goal, at least at a board level, for me is succession planning. What does that look like? How do we keep being a striving organization? And how do we recruit new members and support our committees? Josh coming in a development chair, and really, you don't have, with only 3 members, there aren't enough people to split off and do the work, right? To take on the different needs in that area for the school. So those are for me sort of where I things I'd like to address in the 21-22 school year as we continue to grow and learn as a board.
It's great.
Is that kind of what you meant?
It's perfect. These are great areas of interest. I love the board development work. I think that's super important. I love the refining and recapturing what does mission alignment really look like. It's really good. I'm gonna go Josh, Jed, Sean, and again you can pass. Josh.
Thanks, John. I agree with that last part that Hope said. That's kind of what I wanted to bring to the table. Is I think I've said it before too, and I haven't followed through, but I think we need to grow our committees. I think that'll serve a lot, as far as feeders, onto the board. I think also, we've got parents out there who are great at a lot of these things. You want to talk about parent engagement. I think a first step to that is trying to really put a focus on growing the committees, particularly as we're coming out of COVID, meeting again, kind of rebooting a little bit. I think that's one of the big focuses that I'd like to see. Agreed.
Yeah, there is this reboot conversation right now, everybody. Like, reopening the school year isn't like reopening in the spring. We have a whole new challenge. Like I said, 25% of our staff have never worked a whole year on this campus. It's just, there's a reboot here. It's gonna be part of the work. Jed, Sean, and Michelle.
I like the focus on just making that sense of cultural cohesion strong in this moment. I think that's important. I keep coming back to what our broader impact is and what discussion we generate, given that we create a high school that operates in a way very different from so many high schools in San Diego County, especially for our kids who have come from communities that are historically underserved. And what do we do now with the new example that we are putting on the landscape to try and change a broader discussion? I think it's a conundrum, and because we go out there and we start saying we're better than other people or whatever, all we do is just shut other people down and just bring backlash on ourselves. On the other hand, the state of high schools in our region is appalling, and it must be changed. And when you get a new kind of school in the landscape for people to start talking about, it's a moment where some things could catalyze. So that's where I would love to see Westlake continuing to cogitate more as this high school rolls out.
As a note on that, Amy Wells, just while we're taking notes, is being clear about what is different about our high school. Publicly being clear about what is different. Jed, you're alluding to the fact that we are doing something differently, but I don't know that everybody in an elevator pitch can tell you exactly what it is that we're doing that is so innovative. So yeah, I like that. And then somehow being willing to demonstrate what's possible. Sean, Michelle, Lila?
I would agree with Hope and Josh about the succession planning, both for the committees and for the board, using the committees as a pool to pull from for the board. red box on one of the slides that you just showed, high school facility, obviously needs to be something that we're working on. And generally, I think what Hope was talking about with the sort of reorienting, refocusing, making sure that we sort of get ourselves back on track, because of the year that shall remain nameless.
Yeah. And I think we're well positioned to do that, everybody. As much as a culture hit as we must have had in this last year, I'm still proud that Westlake arrived at the finish line this year, still somewhat knowing who we are. We performed as ourselves, I feel like. We didn't lose ourselves. We lost a lot of opportunities during that pandemic, but we still made decisions based on who we are, I think. And I think that's going to help us stay on track or reboot on track. Michelle, Lila, and Janie?
Yeah, I just want to continue the theme of kind of rebuilding and reacclimating, particularly in terms of ED goals. I think if there was one I would recommend, it would be to really focus on kind of providing the supports to recover from the year that both students and I suspect and that possibly even trauma that teachers and students may have had over the past year. So, I think focusing on what resources, students need to be provided, reassessments at some point in terms of where students are and their skill sets and bridging around them. I think Westlake did a great job throughout COVID, but it's impossible to reach everybody. So just being mindful of who may be falling behind. And so just having that focus next year. And then in terms of board priorities, I think a big one just has to be to continue to be an active participant in what's next in terms of high school. This launch year is big, but there's probably many more things that are on the horizon. So just being a really active participant in that.
That's good. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I love that we talked about rebooting the culture of who we are and why we do what we do. But I love what you called out, Michelle, and that is like, let's use trauma-informed practices to respond to learning loss and SEL loss for students and staff in our community. Love it. Great. MacIver and then Janie Leggett.
I'll go ahead and echo Michelle with kind of a request that there is a goal that reflects where we are at this moment in time, right? We are coming through this very hard year, but to not acknowledge it where we are at this moment and not to acknowledge the year ahead too, right? We are going to see some changes. I mean, even in our mask conversation that we are going to be responsive and have to communicate with families and teachers and acknowledging where we are at this point, looking back and looking forward and having a goal that reflects that. And then Hope talked a little bit about, getting on the same page, acknowledging, are we, avoiding that mission drift? And it kind of connects with what Jed was talking about too. Are we defining what makes, our high school? Are we doing that K-9? Are we all on the same page? And as a new board member, I mean, I have a particular interest in that, right? Like, yes, let's have a conversation about all getting on the same page and moving forward together.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, I love the term mission drift. So yeah. Let's use that. Let's get that in there somewhere. Combating that. Janie Leggett?
I just think about reflection. I hear reboot but like really reflecting on, the year that doesn't want to be named, and I know we don't I just don't want it to be like under the rug and pretending like it didn't happen. Yeah. There's a lot of things that floated to the top that are really important. Cultural competency being one of them. There's just a lot of things that kind of came up that I hope we continue to have those conversations and make them important. And I think there's things we learned that the things that we're like, we can do this in different ways. We don't have to go back to exactly how we did it because that feels better, but just learning from this year, there's so many positive things that came out of this year as well. So just kind of focusing on reflecting and not just hoping it goes away, but really thinking about what did we do? What was good? What worked? What can we keep? I don't know. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I agree, Janie. We're on the same page. I've been riffing a lot on this topic of acknowledging the interruption, but embracing the disruption. Yes, were we interrupted? Were our practice interrupted? Yes. But like, what was disruptive? What has now changed that should never change back? How do we address kids, regardless of their physical placement on campus, off campus, whatever that is? I'm really interested. Obviously, cultural competency, social justice, those pieces are part of the disruptive work of this year that shouldn't be brushed under the rug. We're not returning back to normal. We're moving forward out of what was a disruptive experience. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Team, I'd like to open it up to the floor. So I whipped around. Any additions that bubbled up while someone else was talking? You maybe thought, ooh, I have one more. Anybody else have a thought they'd like to introduce? And I'll open it up to Batten, A-Dub, and Steve if you want to play as well. Just okay. Do a little teacher wait time. Great. Hope and I worked together earlier this week. We wanted to hold a little brainstorm right now. That was great. As you have a thought over this next month, jot it down or feel free to email me or Hope and say, oh, I had this thought about board or ED goals. Let's keep this topic bubbling in our board brains, please. In this next, and we're going to talk about it in the next item, but in this next month, we're going to engage in some board assessments and some skill inventories. We're going to come back to this meeting space, whether that's digital or physical. Not really sure where we're at there yet. And we're going to be talking about what does our strategic plan compel us to do, regardless of the disruption we just experienced. And we're going to utilize that to also help develop these board and ED goals. So this is a multi-month process, and today was just the beginning of it. Hope, might I jump to the next item or?
Yeah, I just wanted to add it would be really nice to get some sample goals potentially or ideas from the board and let our directors know that you and I are meeting to work on these things on the 26th of July. So that would be sort of my initial request, that if you have ideas that you can get to us in the next 10 days or so,
cool.
That would be really helpful, because we won't meet again until right before school starts, and the agenda packet will already be done. And
right.
So really, to have the most impact, the 26th would be a great goal.
Yeah, so if your brain is crafting out a little goal piece, let's get it to us before or on the 26th. But again, that may shift and change once we do board assessment and analysis and inventory, things like that. But yeah, I love it. Anybody has something they want to scrawl out, put it on a back of a bar napkin and send it in. Take a picture of it. Can we hit skill assessment discussion real quick? It should be short, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I just want to acknowledge kind of what that was, more or less, for new board members and for those who've been through it before. We typically have used board on tracks inventories, and there's two sets of inventories. One is a board assessment, and as you'll recall, we ask our board members, not playing gotcha, we ask our board members, hey, how are our board meetings structured? Are they appropriately structured? Are they appropriately facilitated? Is our board composed in a way that's aligned with best practices? Do we have recruitment practices? We acknowledge tonight that maybe we need to do better on board recruitment. So if we score low in that area, it just tells us we have to get better. Do we have goals and accountability, finance oversight, development oversight, academic oversight, CEO support and evaluation, and do we have a board savvy CEO? That's us reflecting on ourselves as a board so that we can then go out and seek professional development opportunities to grow ourselves as a board. So that's part one. And some of that might lead to good board goals. Part two is a skills inventory. Well, why would we do this? Well, when you look around the brilliant skills on this screen right here, are there any skills missing for future goals? One of the things that one of you acknowledged was we need to build a long-term permanent facility. Do we have the skills on this board to help us do that? Do we need somebody with real estate background, finance background, leaseback background? So skills inventory, our current skills inventory survey that you'll take includes, do you have development experience, finance experience, facilities, human resources, governance, academic oversight, legal, legislative, policy development, and how are you as a collaborator? We might include more skills based on, we're developing a facility. Do you have construction oversight skills, things like that? So if in the next 30 days, as we develop this piece and we launch it in the beginning of August, if you think of an area that you would like included on these surveys, please email that to Hope or myself. Like, oh, hey, John, we should really ask in our skills inventory, do we have a board member who has this skill set so that we can really target that going forward? So we will be launching these 2 assessments in the next month. We'll be doing the analysis on the feedback, and this will help us in filling Nancy Con Vasquez's seat. Because if we find out, for example, Nancy left and now we have a skill gap around development, for example, we might be looking for our next board member to have skills in an area that we are absent. Does that make sense? So that is why we do this work, so we can set goals and do appropriate recruitment. Hope, any follow-up on this piece right here?
No, I would just say too that it helps us to fill, but also helps us to plan for succession. So we used to have like pie charts that would color different areas so that as you looked 3 years out on the board, you could see like what skills you might be losing or need to fill. And so while that for right now isn't our most important piece, it will still be helpful for us to sort of look at the long game that way. Yeah. And I'm not sure we've been able to do that for a while. So that's another piece of the data I'm looking forward to getting out of it is, further developing our board timeline.
So the reason this is a discussion item tonight was I wanted to hear, as Hope and I are developing these assessments, I wanted to hear the voice of the board. Are there pieces that you would like us to be assessing that are not listed here? I mean, Jed, I look at your vast knowledge and you go, hey, a good organization should be thinking about this. Or is there something on here that we shouldn't be thinking about? Like, hey, let's quit quizzing ourselves on development if we're not actually going to engage in it. Jed?
Look, you guys all know I'm a fan of Board on Track and all that stuff. But I think this is crazy. I don't think these skills inventories for boards is the right way to do things, right? The things that most matter, are we representative?
Okay.
And I think that we fall short on that, right? It's still from like a race and ethnicity and broader community. I think we should be constantly pushing ourselves on that. The other thing is that you want people who are deeply committed to what makes us unique so that we stay that way and we honor the culture that we've already made. The great threats that we have, for charter schools and other organizations is when you bring somebody onto the board who actually isn't committed to that thing and wants to drag the organization in a different way. So for me, much more important than any of these skills things, you can buy the expertise we need in real estate. We can buy the expertise we need in policy development, whatever. It's amazing that we've got people that happen to have these expertise that make it easier for us. I mean, what Hope brings, what Michelle brings, what everybody brings. It's what Sean's done on the finance committee is incredible. But the most important thing is, making sure that our community believes that we are a body that speaks with authority, right? And that is achieved through representativeness, and then something that's going to preserve Westlake for the long term to be the unique thing that it is.
I love the goal around representative because we do have a strategic action around that. So as we expand and as we grow seats, that one is a great goal for us to keep our finger on. How do we get at that other piece? How do we get at that mission aligned, Westlake Charter zealot, I'm all in on what we do? How do we get at that?
And let me push it a little farther, Jed, before you respond, because John and I had a very in-depth conversation on this subject on Monday, in the fact that mission and vision alignment feels very subjective. So when it comes time to select board members or not select board members, how do you make it a more objective process? How do you measure mission and vision alignment? Like that's sort of where we're at and trying to sort of just to capitalize on it as we bring people on and to give honest feedback as to why someone may or may not be a good fit for the board.
My own thoughts on this are that being more specific about what we will not do, what we are trying to protect ourselves from sliding back into, should be made more specific in our documents. I mean, we've done a great job of, defining our values but I think that knowing what those things are and where we feel at risk of sliding back, like something right now around full inclusion, in special ed and that kind of stuff. I mean, there are going to be some moments if people really unpack that. Why have schools gone in a different direction, right? And there are going to be parents, there are going to be community members, there are going to be others, they're going to want us to compromise on that, right? Well, why don't we? And drive that pillar down as far as we can. I would prefer that we would be doing something more on absolutely all kids are going to go to college. And we have a common intellectual mission that all are. And if you want to break the common intellectual mission by, getting your kids calculus in 8th grade or something, whatever, or you want to make a gifted and talented strand or whatever the hell it is, right? We don't do that. We ain't going to do it. And we are looking for board members, that understand those pieces and demonstrate their commitment to us before they get on the board. They're so committed to it. They've been doing these other things to help the school for some period of time. And we really get to know them and we trust them. And once we know that they're great, we're so excited for them to come on.
Yeah, in some ways, periods of budget strife are really helpful in this, right, Jad? Because it's easier. And I don't want to have a budget strife. Don't get me wrong. But when we're sitting around the table trying to decide what programs we do or don't keep, right, and what sacrifices we have to make to achieve our strat plan goals, that's where you kind of get that meat of the alignment, I feel like, because that's when, rubber hits the road and you have to decide what your program's going to be moving forward. It's keeping art, Spanish, and PE teachers, right? It's not cutting those certificated positions in order to fund other things. And so thank you for focusing it that way. Like it is, we can use certainly our programmatic aspects to sort of shape our questions. It's still kind of subjective in the sense that, it's possible that it's going to be interesting to work with the board, I think, to come up with maybe a priority list of what things we do and how to value that. It's still not, right, John, I think you'd agree, It's still very subjective.
I mean, it flips from a skills inventory into kind of like a values inventory.
Yeah.
Are you all in on full inclusion? Do you believe in, inspiring adults who lead as global citizens in these following ways? Yeah. Do you believe in detracking mathematics? Like, are you in on these things? Because these are our what did you call it? Our common intellectual mission. I love it. I love it. It's good feedback. I'm not sure I'm totally willing to break away from poor board on track because they've done this great work, but maybe it's a yes and, that we also do some of the common intellectual mission work as well. Other thoughts on this topic, team? I know I want to let you go tonight, but as we're starting to say, who are we as a board? How do we assess ourselves to make sure that we're utilizing who we are to move into our next goal areas? And as we talk about recruiting new members, are there other topics other than the ones that have been brought up? I love the diversification of our board, the constantly striving to meet the rich diversity of our community, and this idea that Jed brought about ensuring that common values and intellectual mission and are part of our membership. Other thoughts you would add to this assessment or inventory or process?
I might just add to think too about, like, if you have a reflection on like a skill or a membership like that the board needs, please share that with John or I.
Yeah.
Like John knows, I feel a very strong need of somehow, and Milo, you're a great example because you are working with the high school, but how do we make sure that high school voice is heard?
Yeah.
How do we not lose the primary voice? Like, there's just a lot of different pieces here that as we grow as an organization, how do we make sure, and I know that's not necessarily the representation we were talking about, but it is a piece of our community, of our full picture. So if board members would just take some time to think about like those holes or things you notice or wonder, that would be really helpful too. Sorry to jump in again, John.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, team. Thank you for your voice on that. I think I'll close this item out and allow us to kind of move forward.
Okay. We do just one more check for public comment before we jump to reflection.
Yeah, just a second. I messed up my YouTube stream here. I just gotta get right back on the screen, or else the people on YouTube can't see our faces. There we go, and we're back. Let's go there, and let me check the. I see no public comments.
Perfect, thank you. Well, not perfect. It's always nice when we have them, but perfectly checked. So reflection is our time where we used to do plus minus delta, but now we've kind of transitioned to sharing either something that worked well or something that might work better if, and how we might be able to help or assist in making that better. John, you want to just do will you do the look around again?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do our what would have worked better for you, or what worked well and made the meeting work well. I'll go with Michelle, Sean, and Josh.
Yeah, what worked well, I think there's so many diverse perspectives and everybody kind of jumped in at the right times to offer areas where they have expertise or thoughts. So it was a great conversation.
That is a wonderful reflection. Sean, Josh, Hope.
I thought it was great to hear from our new board members, and although they had the option to pass, that they chose not to, which is always great.
Yeah, kind of echo what Michelle said, man. The diversity of voices here is really important. Thank you, everybody. Josh, Hope, Janie?
Yeah, I really like the whip around structure where everybody just, take as much time as you need to throw out ideas. I like that we've started doing that more instead of just opening it up to discussion. And then you have to give us the teacher eyes and kind of wait. And then also I like that Richard Branson wasn't first, Jeff Bezos wasn't first, Westlake Charter High School was first in space.
Ah! I'm tweeting that tomorrow. That is so good. Thank you, Josh.
That's like a whole round of claps there, Josh. You give a whole round.
That just made my whole day. I'm tweeting that out. Okay, sorry, everybody. Hope Golick, Janie Leggett, Jed Wallace.
So my reflection is the appreciation for what Janie said, right? Like, it is easy to want to sort of block out and forget last year, but we learned so much from it. And so just that realization that we, take those lessons and move forward, because we need to learn from our history. And there's a lot it can tell us. So it's great having your voice on the board, Janie, and I really appreciate you sharing that tonight.
Yeah, I knocked that one out of the park. Janie Leggett, Jed Wallace, Lila McIver.
I just really appreciated how everyone's different voices. It was I'm learning and getting to know all of you, but I love that everyone has different perspectives, and no one and everyone, even if it was different than what someone was presenting, and you were willing just to put it all out there. That feels good, and it was a great first board meeting. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, we are a well-balanced, diverse group of thinkers. This is such a diverse group of expertise on this board. I'm so appreciative of the whole team. Jed Wallace, Lila McIver, and then if Batten Corving want to play.
So I don't know how long. I don't even know how long I've been on this board. Is it 10 years? Is it 11? Is it 12? I don't even know. It's been a while. It's been a while. And look, I've grown comfortable with our routines and those kinds of things. I can live with them, right? I think something I've brought up before, I'm going to bring it up again. The quality discussion on the toughest item, the things that you're really agonizing over, Hope and John, I think those things should be going earlier in the meeting. I'm used to operating boards where you get just a little icebreaker type thing. Tell me some good news. And then what's the agonizingly difficult thing? And everybody's ready for that discussion and the materials are there. And then if there are other things that we need to take care of that are regular and routine and whatever, they happen later, right? But we make sure we have that conversation, when we're super fresh, but when just a little bit of the ice has been broken so that we're really ready. I would recommend over time that somehow or another you guys think about that, because I'm just thinking back over the last year and some of the conversations that we've had about opening and closing, and some of those things happened a full hour or 75 minutes after the meeting started. And I personally wasn't as fresh then as I would have been had we discussed those things earlier. So I just put that out there as a general idea for you.
It'd be fun to try and change it up, Hope. I mean, take our agenda and let's dance it around, see what happens. And if discussions don't just skyrocket, we go back to wait, what? Just kidding. No, it's great. I love it. Yeah, thank you. Lila McIver, then Steve M. A-Dub, if you want to play.
Thanks for such a welcoming first meeting. Josh, you talked about the whip around. I'm a fan of the whip around also. I know there is a learning curve to being on the board, and that whip around made me feel like my voice was valued on that very first meeting as much as anybody else. So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, just good old teacher structures, right? We just steal that stuff from teachers. Good stuff. Steve, if you want to play it, M and then A-Dub.
I would just give a shout out to the board. Each board member is a volunteer, and you all volunteer your time for this. So it's just a shout out to each one of you for dedicating more time to Westlake Charter School.
Love it. M. Batten and A-Dub.
I would just shout out our new board members. It was so exciting. Even though I knew they were going to be on the screen, to see their faces on the screen and to hear their perspectives. It's such an important piece of our board composure, and I just was so excited to hear and see both of you today. So
Hashtag big fan, both of you guys.
That was what I meant to say, not composure. Sorry.
A-Dub, what do you got?
So of course, seeing the high school piece is always super exciting and fun. I can't wait to see all that Emily has done. I can't imagine anybody better to start that program than her. Her enthusiasm is infectious. And then also just selfishly, 4 more sleeps until I'm back on campus with my peeps.
4 more sleeps.
Which always makes me happy.
I wanted to reflect on the composition of this board, and it happens at every meeting, but Michelle, you really said it. If you go rewind the YouTube of this meeting tonight, every single person on this screen offered a piece of expertise from their unique perspective that added to the conversation in a really beneficial way. Every one of us contributed tonight, and that I just don't know that everyone has the benefit of working with a board like this. And I'm super grateful to work with you, and I appreciate all of your support. This has been an incredibly challenging last year and a half. We will restart in the fall in an incredible way, and we will launch a high school that will absolutely blow the minds of the people on the sideline. We will do things that people don't believe is possible, and it is because of your leadership. So thank you for being the board that you are, and I think tonight was a perfect example of who you are. You each brought something to the table today, so thank you for that. Hope Golick.
With that, I guess we'll do one last check for public comment before we adjourn.
I will check. Seeing none.
Perfect. So with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And I look forward to seeing you all in August.